Like this. I think what's real is to say that this book was my senior thesis when I received my master's. And one of my challenges was I had already worked in the world at the professional level of a master's. I gave myself a master's, so it was like self-appointed master's. So when I attended graduate school, I was told, don't tell any of the professors of your successes. And I thought, that's an odd thing to say to someone. But I realized why. Because I'm a crazy, crazy woman who overachieves. I just do it, and I stack it, and I do it. And I don't stop until, I don't know, until the next thing. So I, in private, in a way, I wrote these vignettes, and they're written in collage because I thought it would be best to write short, pithy pieces. And when you live a childhood like the one I lived, you don't want to live in the trauma as it would take for me to write a book like this. But I think I went in the dark, so to speak. I snatched the most important pieces. I wrestled them down to the ground until I could get the meaning that they had for me. And I think this book, unlike my first book, which was, I'ma tell on you motherfuckers. That was my first book. I'ma tell. Y'all want to beat the black off me? Well, I'ma tell everybody, and you're gonna feel bad about yourself. So my first book, I was a little unconscious and angry, but who's keeping score, right? What's important is that I believe in this book, I've been able to grow my soul up. Oh my God, is that Candace? Girl, you better walk in here and sit down, girl. Look at you. You know you look good, Candy Cane. That's my girl right there. Oh my God, thank you, Mama. I love you. So, here we go. What's interesting about this book is, in the movie version, this is actually the screenplay, okay? So even though the movie will be titled Somebody Someone, 85% of that movie is this book. And about 6 months ago, when my publisher said, what is this book about? And I thought, I don't really know. I just know I'm going to try and forgive myself and a lot of people. So I think the book is about that and a lot of other themes. But I was sitting, my sweetheart was away at something called the Mankind Project Warrior Weekend, where they, do we got some mankind? Yeah, woo-hoo, yes. And he went away, and whenever he goes away, I like sneak off on shopping sprees and hide the shoes around the yard, but that's a whole other conversation. So I'm in Palo Alto sitting in my hotel room, and I'm thinking, what is this book about, really? And this is what I believe this book is about. And it was really amazing to hear the actress that will play the older me speak these words out loud. This is the prologue. Throughout my journey, I have met thousands of children and youth who are biding their childhoods away in out-of-home care and foster care, wondering what will become of them, and wanting to know how to traverse the course they're on. From group homes to fictive kin homes, from transitional housing programs to emancipated young people with no place to land, these children are doing what they can to just get through another day. Some seem to thrive more than others, while there have been many who felt they can't afford to dream beyond an inch of their breath. And this next piece is where it gets very interesting for me. This is the task of anyone who carries the burden of his or her own unworthiness, to learn to give one's own self merciful favor while standing in the blistering heat of a primal wound, to seek refuge within one's own heart, and to wipe someone else's fatalistic narrative of what their life will be from their conscience, hand it back to the disbeliever and say, I believe this belongs to you. I think it's so important for us to understand our story and who gets to tell our story. And I had a social worker who was hell-bent on telling me I was never going to be anything, and I was not worth her time and her efforts. So when I sat in that hotel room, I thought, this book is me wiping her fatalistic narrative from my conscience, handing it back to her and saying, I'm sorry, girlfriend, but I believe this belongs to you. Let's see if I can find a not so intense piece. Good luck. You know, I think I think, oh yes, thank you. You know, you are so naughty. You're so naughty. But you know what? I'm going to give you what you asked for. One of the things I think is important about this book is who I dedicated it to. It took a long time. It took 53 years to get to the place where I could say this. For my sister, Cynthia, because that's what I called her, and her son, Timothy, and his sister, Sherry, and the innocents we all unwittingly lost. For my mother, Maddie Arlene Washington, I've never stopped thinking about you, but I had to stop wanting you. For my brothers, wherever you may be. And sometimes you just get that kind of hand, you know, and then we have to live it. But isn't that beautiful and sexy, is to get tragedy handed to you on a silver platter and you turn that motherfucker on his head. You know what I'm saying? Now to me, I imagine that you've all had incredible lives, right? I'm going to assume that. But I'm going to tell you, living a life that is so chock full of adverse childhood experiences, there are high points to it. Because there's no one to tell you you can't, and there's no one to tell you you can, so the choice is all yours. So I always, well, not just all me. There's another person in this crowd that, ooh, girl. So there's another person in this crowd who this book, as well as my first book, speaks to. And those of you who know my story, you know her already. And it's so weird, as I sat and I wrote this, I didn't do it alone. And I did it from a woman who was able to recognize me when I was a little girl. And she was able to see my humanity. And when everybody else said, hails to the no, that child is too wild, we cannot, she saw the beauty. And I think that's what this movie is going to highlight, is the beauty she saw. You know, I'm going to say this. As I was looking at the dailies, and I saw Angela, and I'm just going to say this because I think it's important. And I saw Angela in the white padded cell as they're dragging her down the hall and they're going to toss her in solitary confinement. And I hear the screams and I see her fight and I see her coping skills. And then they throw her in this padded cell and she's thrashing and her body is flailing. And it's surreal. And then I thought, yeah, you know, because on the other side of that was someone who loved me so fiercely that I was willing to fight. I was willing to, like, just be that girl who would not let anybody tell me what to do. And to get into that pad and to fight and something say, it's okay, because you know what, baby? Something great is going to happen, so just know that. And to be in there and to have claustrophobia and think I'm going to die, can't find my breath, my balance, and have something say to me, baby, please, don't get upset at this shit. This is little. This is little. Girl, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, cry, go ahead. And then when you're done, know that you're okay. So, my mom, Jean, will you stand up, please, for those people who don't know you? This woman loved me when nobody could even find it in them to say my name. So, I love you, and thank you. And the whole time I was in Winnipeg watching the actress play you and then her, there were moments that I was literally digging my fingernails into my palm so that I wouldn't lose my shit, where I had to say, she's not your mom, the actress, and that is not you. Like, they're playing this out, dude, and back up and give them the psychic space to do all that they have to do. It was mind-blowing. So I have such a high appreciation for our journey, It's like, it's beyond words. It's fucking crazy. And you're gonna see it. It's crazy. It's a miracle. It's a miracle and humbling. So I'm gonna lift these spirits and read you what Rod loves. When you grow up the way I did, I had to be conscious. I wanted to be touched because I was a very physical child. But I grew up in an environment where that couldn't be touched. And it was difficult because I needed to be held and touched. And the girls around me, all they talked about were the men and the boys, and I knew I couldn't give the goodies up to nobody. I don't know where that came from in me, but I was that girl that never gave the cookies up, never gave the goodies up, and so I needed physical touch, though. So when you live with a bunch of women, you know, the only people you're going to get physical touch from are other women, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every girl that lived in that place with me. And I'm grateful that we had the wherewithal to know in our secrets, in our quiet places, how to hold one another and touch one another and resurrect the withering parts of us and to keep us alive. So there's no fucking shame in anybody that would ever want to cast judgment or shame on that. I have no time for you. I have nothing for you because we all do what we got to do. And I'm grateful. I wouldn't exchange it for the world. This is called Touch Me. On a hot Saturday night, a solid month of successfully abiding by the Guideways rules, doing it their way beneath my belt, I sat in Lola's room on the edge of her bed, my eyes closed as she drew cool water into the small bathtub at the opposite end of the room. She was one of the residents who'd played by the rules and earned level 3 faster than anyone else ever had. This meant she'd scored her own room, her own schedule, and relationships with staff who seemed to bend to her will. It was her choice that I come and hang out in her room, just the two of us, while most of the other girls, along with the staff, were out for a night of roller skating at the local rink. It was Lola's night to wash her hair, and she sure as hell wasn't gonna hang with none of them country bunk girls who stayed drugged and lifeless. She'd seen me plait another resident's hair and had commented on how quickly my fingers moved in and out of the dense mass. I had learned to braid in a dream when I was 11 or so. My sister, who was born braiding hair and did so with the quickness of a hummingbird, had refused to teach me, so I watched her. My eyes recorded each move she made at the speed she made it, and in my dreams, I'd slow her fingers down and replace them with my own. When I awoke, I asked my sister if I could braid her hair, and like that, I was able to. I learned most everything like that. Lola's daddy had her move into her mother's side of his bed when her mama died, or was it that her mother ran off with another man? Memory can sometimes be elusive. Either way, her leaving left a vacancy. She became her daddy's second wife in every manner of the word wife. This quick-started Lola into an adulthood few, if any of us girls, could handle. And when that half-black, half-Japanese girl whose long black hair brushed the curve of her spine when she walked, lowered those eyes the shape of teardrops tilted towards heaven, all I could do was whatever she told me to. I'd always had an inclination for the beauty of girls, their rituals. I was a tomboy, rough, a bull in a china cabinet, I heard. Rarely remembered to lotion my skin, change my underwear, brush my teeth, wash my hair, bathe even. I saw myself more like a black version of Huckleberry Finn. Always afraid I'd miss something, I took as little time as possible for me. I needed to be in the mix, know what was going on. I was always solving for not being left behind. I imagined there were things Lola could show me if I were to move up through the behavior mod system at Guideways. I heard her break the water's surface. Hi. I heard her break the water's surface in the bathtub, and I opened my eyes and tried hard not to let them fall upon her nakedness, for fear that somehow I'd see my own and blush with a secret embarrassment. But when Lola said, "Get on over here, girl, and cool my back off," I thought not about refusing her or what might happen if someone found out, but rather I thought of what it would feel like to touch another human being, a girl whose skin was 4 shades deeper than my own, which made her the Reese's peanut butter cup chocolate outside to my peanut butter center. These things together reminded me of my sister, who was the same color as Lola, and someone I shared a bed with. The two of us stuck together like stacked chairs up until I'd left Texas 5 years prior. I yearned for a bit of both, the spooning and my sister. But the penalty for an infraction, touching for instance, involved the loss of privileges and a possible level demotion, depending on who committed the infraction and how many warnings they'd already been given. If found out, the wrongdoer would have to do a few chores to earn back lost privileges. I'd earned level 1 and still hadn't received permission to call Miss Kerr. I took the sponge Lola offered. My buttocks rested on the lip of the tub, and I waited, watched Lola twisted her hair into a chignon that sat up on her head, crown-like. With both hands, I squeezed the heavy sponge and let the water run the length of her smooth skin again and again. I scrubbed her back tenderly, as if she were my own child, as if I loved her. I picked up the bar of ivory soap and painted her hair with it. My fingers dug deep into her hair, felt the shape of her head. For a moment, I was lost in the ritual, lost in the touching that seemed to help me remember once again what it felt like to be human, to be kind, useful, to be needed. I was taken back to South Austin. My fascination with girls' ritual started there with Trinity Rodriguez. I'd waited after school to fight kids, propelled by an impulse to impersonate Catwoman. I'd jump them from behind a bush, a garbage can, a tree. Trinity intervened one day when I targeted her friend and stood up to me and offered to become my friend if I spared her friend. I accepted. Over time, given that I was sent home earlier than the other students to give me a head start and spare them the brunt of my misplaced rage, Trinity agreed to leave the key to her house for me in a tear in her brother's motorcycle seat. The ritual. I go to her house and do as she instructed. Remove my clothes and hide. Sometimes I'd hide in a closet or beneath a bed. Trinity would arrive home and start searching for me. Maybe I'd allow her to go past me before I ran from cover and forced a chase, only to outrun her. We'd wear ourselves thin, changing the rules as we went. I loved the rule of whichever one of us found the other first got to do whatever she wanted. I was much faster than Trinity, so it was easy for me to get to the designated safety area first. And I came to prefer her catching me that way. If God were watching the things we did, if God were watching, the things we did would be her fault, not mine. Trinity taught me how to touch her breasts and the outsides of our vaginas. Sometimes, the sensations of touching unleashed. Sometimes, the sensations, the touching unleashed, hypnotized me for days. It was the first time I felt what my insides felt. Mouth watering, delicious. A pillow between us, we'd grind our narrow hips into one another and kissed using our tongues as though we were both morphing into the whole being of the other. The ritual became one of my favorite pastimes. Sometimes I got into trouble just so Trinity would chastise me. Gently, after, Trinity would clean herself up, remove any traces that I'd been there, that we'd been there. Thank you. All right, I think I have spent enough time talking, so I'm gonna hang out. Y'all, that pink table over there is not for photo ops. I want y'all to eat it, take it, enjoy it. It's for you. It's the dessert table. Hey, Lynn, how you doing? And Kate and David are here. Y'all look beautiful. All right.
Let's go sailing on the sea. Let's go dancing on the juke joint floor. And leave our troubles all behind and have a party